In 1925, the U.S. Army War College issued a chilling proclamation. Black men, it claimed, were biologically unfit for combat, incapable of bravery, discipline, technical aptitude, or leadership. This wasn't an offhand remark. It was a formal, meticulously prepared document rooted in pseudoscientific racism and meant to justify decades of military segregation. The report insisted that black soldiers were inherently submissive, lacked intelligence, and were constitutionally incapable of managing complex machinery or commanding men in battle. It became policy a wall not of brick but of bureaucracy. Yet less than 20 years later, white bomber crews over Nazi Germany were screaming into their radios, "Send the red tails." How did men branded as genetically inferior become the most trusted guardians in the sky? Their journey wasn't defined by one heroic moment, but by a relentless two-front war, one against the Luftwaffe's best pilots and the other against the crushing weight of American prejudice. To win the first demanded skill, to win the second required perfection. Their story is one of discipline born from exclusion, defiance shaped by dignity, and crimson tails carving a future across Europe's blood-red skies. The fight begins long before the first flight. Before engines roared, voices rose. In the late 1930s, as Europe collapsed into war, civil rights leaders like Walter White of the NAACP and A. Philip Randolph confronted the Roosevelt administration with a searing contradiction. How could America claim to defend democracy abroad while denying democracy at home to 13 million black citizens? Pressure-mounted editorials, petitions, threats of a massive black march on Washington. Reluctantly, the War Department responded. In 1941, it announced the creation of an all-black flying unit framed not as progress, but as an experiment. The word was chosen intentionally. An experiment can fail, and many in power hoped it would. Candidates were sent to a hastily converted airfield near Tuskegee Institute in Alabama, selected not for its aviation merits, but for its entrenched segregation. Here, under Jim Crow's shadow, the cadets would face both the challenges of military flight training and the humiliations of a racist society. They lived apart, ate apart, and remained under white officers who often echoed the prejudices of that 1925 report. The deck wasn't merely stacked, it was bolted down. But the architects of the experiment miscalculated. They expected pressure to break the cadets. Instead, it forged them. The men at Tuskegee understood they were flying not just for themselves, but for their entire race. Every test was a referendum on black capability. Failure wasn't simply personal, it threatened to seal the door for every black American who dreamed of flying. So they pushed harder. While white cadets graduated after roughly 200 flight hours, Tuskegee pilots logged more than 300. Their washout rate reached 60%, compared to 40% in white programs, not due to inferior skill, but because standards were intentionally harsher. Yet one white officer, Colonel Noel Parrish, saw their potential. He believed in ability, not skin color, and shaped the program into a crucible that produced pilots whose skill and discipline were undeniable. Each graduate earning his wings became a living refutation of the racist lie America had told itself, into combat and into contempt. In April 1943, the first group, led by Captain Benjamin O. Davis Jr., deployed to North Africa. Davis himself was a symbol of discipline. At West Point, white cadets had subjected him to 4 years of near-total silence. He studied alone, marched alone, ate alone, yet he graduated, steel-hard and unbreakable. Their arrival in Tunisia brought an unwelcome reality. They were attached to the 33rd Fighter Group under Colonel William Momir, who saw the Tuskegee program as nothing more than political pandering. He made his contempt unmistakable. The 99th Fighter Squadron was given hand-me-down P-40 Warhawks planes, sturdy but outdated, outmatched by German Bf-109s and FW-190s. Worse, Momir assigned them to repetitive patrols far from real combat. He was determined to deny them any opportunity to prove themselves so he could later claim. The experiment failed. Morale plummeted. These were men trained to be warriors. Instead, they were treated like liabilities. Then everything changed. The first crack in the wall. On July 2, 1943, During an escort mission over Sicily, First Lieutenant Charles B. Hall seized the moment. Two FW-190s swooped toward the bombers. Hall rolled into a steep turn, aimed and fired. His tracers ripped through the German fighter, sending it crashing down. A Tuskegee pilot had shot down one of the Luftwaffe's elite in an obsolete plane. The ground crews erupted, lifting Hall onto their shoulders. A black swastika was painted on his plane, the first of 112 enemy aircraft the Tuskegee Airmen would destroy. But the victory barely made a dent in institutional prejudice. Momir filed scathing reports claiming the 99th lacked aggression and should be removed from combat. His assessment went to General Henry Hap Arnold, commander of the entire Army Air Forces. The entire program teetered on the brink of destruction. Then came Anzio, the proving ground. In January 1944, Allied forces clung to a beachhead at Anzio under relentless German air attack. When an emergency call went out for every available fight, the 99th was scrambled, still flying outdated P-40s. They faced swarms of FW-190s. According to Momir, they should have fled. Instead, they fought with ferocity and discipline, shooting down 12 German fighters in 2 days, more than in their previous 7 months combined. The performance was too spectacular to ignore. The War Department launched an investigation comparing the 99th to white P-40 units. The conclusion was clear. Despite worse equipment and inferior mission assignments, they performed as well or better than other squadrons. Their experiment was officially declared a success. The door to the future cracked open. The Red Tails are born. In May 1944, the 99th joined 3 more Tuskegee squadrons to form the 332nd Fighter Group. They were transferred to the 15th Air Force in Italy and tasked with the most demanding job in aviation, long-range bomber escort deep into Germany. Colonel Benjamin Davis issued a doctrine that would define their destiny. Our job is not to be aces. Our job is to bring the bombers home. We stay with them no matter what. At a time when most fighter groups chased enemy aircraft for glory, Davis demanded a different courage, the courage of discipline and selflessness. Around this time, fighter groups were ordered to paint their aircraft with distinctive markings. The 332nd was assigned red, and they embraced it fully, painting entire tail sections in brilliant crimson. Overnight, the red tails became unmistakable in the sky. At first, white bomber crews didn't know their escorts were black. They only knew one thing: the red tails didn't abandon them. They stayed glued to the formation, weaving protective screens, escorting damaged bombers all the way home, even when it meant personal risk. Word spread fast. Briefing rooms buzzed with one question: who's escorting us today? When the answer was the Red Tails, relief swept the room. Other P-51 groups lost an average of 46 bombers. The Red Tails lost 27. The men once labeled inferior were now the most trusted protectors in the European theater, the fight against Hitler's secret weapon. By 1945, the Luftwaffe was collapsing, but Germany had one last weapon, the Me-162, the world's first jet fighter, 100 miles per hour faster than the P-51 Mustang. It appeared and vanished like a silver ghost. On March 24, 1945, the 332nd received its toughest mission, escort B-17s to Berlin to bomb the Daimler-Benz tank factory. Intelligence warned that elite German jet units were waiting. As they neared Berlin, the jets came more than had ever been seen at once. But the Red Tails had studied the Me-62's weaknesses. It couldn't turn as tightly as the Mustang and was sluggish at low speeds. Lieutenant Roscoe Brown described their tactic. Instead of going after them, we went away, then turned into their blind spots. The maneuver worked. Brown shot down a jet by climbing into its path. Lieutenant Earl Lane made an extraordinary half-mile deflection shot and downed another. Lieutenant Charles Brantley claimed a third. 3 jets in 1 day, more than most American units destroyed during the entire war. For this mission, the 332nd received the Distinguished Unit Citation. To the Germans, the black pilots they once mocked were now known as Schwarzvogelmänner, the Blackbirdmen. War's irony: freedom abroad, segregation at home. Not every pilot's war ended in the clouds. 32 Tuskegee Airmen became POs. Their captivity exposed brutal ironies. Lieutenant Alexander Jefferson was shot down and captured. His German interrogator knew intimate details about his life, his parents, his home, his commanders. The Nazis had tracked the Tuskegee experiment closely. Jefferson was sent to Stalag Luft III, where he experienced something bitter and surreal. White American Poes treated him as an equal. Many recognized him as one of the red tails who'd protected their bombers and thanked him. In a Nazi prison camp, he later said, "I was treated more equally than I would be in my own country." Upon returning to American soil, he was immediately segregated. He had fought fascism abroad, only to confront racism at home, a record that shattered a lie. By the end of the war, the Tuskegee Airmen had flown over 15,000 sorties and 178 combat missions. They destroyed 112 enemy aircraft in the air, 150 on the ground, and even sank a German destroyer. 96 pilots earned the Distinguished Flying Cross, but their greatest achievement wasn't measured in kills or medals. It was the truth they forced America to confront. Skill, intelligence, discipline, and courage had nothing to do with skin color. Their success became a vital weapon for civil rights advocates and directly influenced President Truman's Executive Order 9981, desegregating the U.S. military in 1948. The men who began as an experiment became architects of a national transformation, a long-delayed honor. For decades, America forgot their story. Textbooks ignored them. Hollywood overlooked them. Only in 2007, over 60 years after World War II, did they receive the Congressional Gold Medal. Many of the original pilots had already passed away. Those who remained wept as they accepted the honor for themselves and for the brothers they had lost. But their legacy was already written in contrails over Berlin, in grateful memories of bomber crews, and in a military reshaped by their excellence. As pilot Roscoe Brown said, "We didn't just fight the Germans. We fought ignorance, prejudice, and hatred, and we won all three battles. They were expected to fail. They refused. They were told they couldn't fly. They soared. And if this story moved you, do one thing for us: hit like and subscribe to Winds of Thought. Stories like this deserve to be remembered, shared, and never forgotten."